photographic image versus cinematography?
When I first kind of thought what I wanted to do, I wanted to be a still photographer. I basically wanted to be a photojournalist and be like Tim Page and go to Vietnam or something. And so photography was a big thing for me. And then I discovered filmmaking and went to film school. And now I spend quite a bit of time taking still photographs, and I've had a book published during the pandemic, so I've gone in a circle really. Very Buddhist.
I love circles. And glass is a big thing too. I was reminded of the beautiful texture of old glass in film, and obviously you were playing with the lenses in that way. Can you tell us, just I've forgotten about that particular device that reminded me of those early photographs with the soft focus around the edges, and what was that specifically?
Well, Andrew was very into doing something that felt like the actual photograph of Jesse James on in the morgue or something like that with a vignette. And I remembered I shot a short film when I was starting out, and I'd taken apart a stills lens and put one element in front of my film camera lens, and it'd done that sort of effect. So we went to Otto Ellis, the rental house, and asked them to try and work out something with 3 different lens lengths with this kind of same effect. So basically 2 of the lenses they made were this. They took apart a wide angle lens, or 2 of them I think, and then put the front element, I think it was, they mounted it in front of a 50mm. And then one of the lenses, they'd actually just took an element out of a wide angle. And I can't remember now where they made it, but it was faster, and it had this very wonderful vignetting and the chromatic aberration of the edges.
But we did try in the beginning to see if we couldn't recreate that digitally.
Yeah.
And we went through and saw that we couldn't get that same effect.
Yeah, I mean originally basically, originally we tried to do everything very chemically, but because originally we were gonna we did a bleach bypass on the neck, and then Andrew wanted to do a kind of warm flash, and so I done some of that flashing on Beautiful Mind, and I wanted to do the similar thing as what I did on that film, which was flash with a warm light. But then we realised we'd have to do all the negative, everything, which is a huge amount of negative, relatively huge amount of negative, and to flash it with this particular warm light would meant that our lab timer on a wine machine and a step printer flash in the negative, and it would just be ridiculous to try and do it with it all. So that we did in a DI digitally.
And so when this unique relationship,
I call it marriage.
got married on set.
No. Yeah, but nearly.
But when did you begin? When did you begin that working together, and how that came?
Well, I started as a script supervisor, and that's how we met. And we did a movie together, totally professionally. And then, got married afterwards, and I was continuing the script, but the script is always the director's choice, not the DP's choice. So sometimes we were on separate movies, and so we figured that if we wanted to be together, which we did, I would just stop doing that, but I can't not do anything. So my background is in a film lab when we were shooting film, so I would help with the dailies and check and look at the dailies for Roger and things like that. But then it gradually became more and more, and then when digital came in, I was in my element, you know.
Well, I mean, it's like when we were shooting this in Calgary, you were off to LA and timing jarhead, and I would fly at weekends back to LA from Calgary to spend Saturday and a bit of Sunday morning in a timing suite, and then go back to shoot on a Monday. It was kind of brutal.
Wow.
But that was the old days when you had to be there. Now you can time on a laptop, can't you?
Amazing. I spent a lot of time earlier in my career as an editor, so script supervising has a big thing, other meaning. It's not really about continuity. It's much deeper and expansive. I'm interested in timings, script timings.
I used to hate doing that, because how do you know how they're gonna cut it?
Yeah.
They could fast cut it, and then it would be less time, or they could draw it out, so it's really hard to be the one to say, this movie is long, or this movie is short.
Especially, I mean, she didn't time this movie, Jesse James, but so much of it is expressed in the kind of feel of the time of the images, and you know, to me, it's what film can be, which is kind of images and sounds, and it's not just a sort of literal kind of, you know, play. It's not a theatre. You know what I mean? I mean, I love the film because there's something about it that affects me emotionally, and I can't actually say what it is or why it is. It's just that's what film can really do when it's really good.
Well, there's so much nuance and detail that normally, gets. So that's what I miss a lot in the age of streaming and short attention spans, and even ironically, when you have endless stories that just go and go and go, they don't have the nuance or detail of cinema, which is just one sitting. It seems like a contradiction in terms. Have you ever been tempted by long form longer than?
I mean, I worked on a TV series when I was starting out, and actually it was funny because it was in London and we were doing like 6.5 minutes of cut screen time a day, and I was actually in trouble because people were saying I was working too fast. How's that for a cinema? It never happened to me again.
So there's an infamous story, I don't know, that with another DP, I believe, and a director that was asking about where this DP was a legendary DP, and the director asked where they were doing a setup, and the director asked where should we put the camera, and the DP said very loudly in front of everyone, "You put the camera where it fucking tells the story."
Makes sense.
There's do you remember that Roger and I were talking about doing the road together way back? Do you remember that?
Vaguely, I'm sorry.
Now we had that's the Weinsteins got involved.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Yeah. They've forced you to sit it out, I believe. Anyway, I wanted to ask you about directors and your relationship with directors, both of you actually. So starting with Andrew and working on this film, the differences of experiences and how you work, how easy you adapt, and how you like to work with directors. Love to hear both your point of views on that. But yeah.
I think, you've got to judge what the director wants from the cinematographer. I think every director is different.
It's also what prep is for, because in prep, you're trying to figure out, one, what their vision is, so you can help them, but, two, how to communicate, because some people communicate in different ways. So it's using that time to be able to form some sort of base, so when you're under the pressure of shooting, you can be the one that will help, instead of, miscommunicate.
I think, only thing I want of a director is passion. Passion for the project. I'll to be honest, I butted heads with Andrew and Jesse James, but only because we both cared so much about the project. And working with like Joel and Ethan is very different, because they're very quiet and restrained, and their prep is so precise that on set you don't tend to talk very much. You just kind of know what you're doing and just do it. Everybody's very different. And the whole way of working, it was an interesting story when I first worked with Sam Mendes on Jarhead. We'd known Conrad Hall very well, and he gave us the lowdown on Sam and everything, and said, well, yeah, he's very meticulous, he likes to storyboard everything and all that, and Connie was kind of he didn't like storyboarding so much, he wanted to find it on the go. And so I'm going in onto Jarhead thinking Sam's going to storyboard it all and it'll all be worked out. And Sam said, I don't want to storyboard or even do a shot list, we'll just shoot it like a documentary, handheld, how about that? Because, we had a very particular idea for it, and contrast that with, say, 1917, which is the one-shot kind of technological challenge. It's just a very different way to do it.
I think Andrew had done a lot of thinking about this, and he had a lot of references, and there was a long hallway in the production office full of images. So he had really strong ideas, which sometimes conflicted with reality. Well, we can't do that here, or the train's not big enough.
Sounds like a real director problem.
You're always pushing it. You're just trying to get everything you can. And why not? So am I. But I'm not doing it just because I'm, vanity. I'm trying to do something that I feel is going to help the story.
Yeah. Oh, it's a fascinating, endless conundrum too, because no matter how much you prep and how much in sync you are, you've also got just that element, I call it the movie gods of chaos, which is luck. And that just...
Or lack thereof.
Do you think you can actually cultivate luck, or like affect it, or in some way?
I would say there's a quote I put in the book that's from Benjamin Franklin, that is that you fail to prep, you're preparing to fail.
Right.
And I think that's, obviously he was talking probably about a revolutionary war. Makes it feel very well, I think. And that's not saying you have to storyboard and all that, but you just have to get your mind around the script, so when you go in the morning, what am I saying? You know on the morning what are the key ingredients you need for the day from the scene,
Yeah. And then further, deeper into a shoot, I'm curious about second unit. Is that something you guys, do you both get involved in that? Or how much do you get involved in? How does that vary?
Do we have a second unit? Do we even have a second unit? A lot of times, there's really no need to organize it and grab the shots that we need.
Yeah, Jesse James, we didn't have a second unit. We had a steady cam operator who sometimes went off and did, time-lapse shots and stuff for us. He would be set up, 100 yards from where we were shooting. when we were shooting, and so that's basically what we did.
But you have to be involved in the second unit because it's got to fit into whatever that you shot. And there are some times when you didn't even know there was a second.
Oh, it was in
Do tell us.
yeah, I mean, I was like 4 or 5 weeks into shooting a film once, and I'm sitting watching dailies in the evening. I thought, I've never shot battle sequences. There's a load of trucks going through the jungle and stuntmen doing silly things. They had second unit shooting for weeks.
I noticed you both flinched when I asked for that second unit.
I mean, sometimes you have to have a second unit, of course you do, but and sometimes you have to have a second camera.
Yeah.
But I've always liked working with a single camera. I like to operate. I like the intimacy of a set with, just a few people really focused on the scene.
I actually wanted to ask you about that. That second camera is something often utilised. The camera is often utilised. So that's something you would like to generally avoid, I gather. Is that right?
I always have. I mean, it's also been a conversation I've had with a director being, interviewing for a project. And you want to know exactly what. I mean, when Sam said he was doing a Bond movie, he phoned us up, didn't he? And the first thing he said, don't put the phone down. Because he kind of knew I wouldn't, I'm not really big into action movies. But then he said, we'll just do it like we were before. Sure, we'll need a second camera, but we'll basically shoot it with one camera as we had before. And sometimes you need 11 cameras, but for the most part, we were doing it as a single camera shoot. And I think, it comes out as a sort of personality in the film, the feel of the film. It's not like, stick 5 cameras up and we'll cut a scene out of it. It has a point of view, if you know what I mean.
Totally. It's that thing of coverage is a big thing, and it seems, especially since digital, that's gotten a whole lot worse in terms of. I think it was David Lynch who said coverage. It's like, isn't that just insurance companies? Understand it at all. But these days, that's kind of become a norm, sadly. A lot of, and a lot of, but I think that's also to do with the showrunners on a lot of, I'm talking about streaming, how showrunners often don't have the grasp, or at least in my experience, very limited experience, the grasp of cinematic language. So it's the insecurity, because they're primarily writers, is just all about covering every line
It
of
is
dialogue.
insecurity,
Right?
yeah.
And I'm a big fan of back shots, which makes it even harder.
So the actors are saying, why are you not on my
That can be
face?
hard, yeah.
That's problem.
You've had that. You set the camera up and the actor says, what are you doing on my back?
But it also, if you do too much coverage, there can be too much discussion in the editing room. And if you know you don't want it, when we were doing Sicario, we were doing that high wide shot when they come back from Paris, right? And Emily and Josh get out and they have this long conversation, and the concept was we'd go in and cover it. But then he looked at it and went, no, don't need it, because this is powerful enough. And if I do shoot it, they're gonna wanna use it.
Well, that gets back, and sorry to bring up digital all the time, and I remember actually, I spoke to Harris Savides and yourself about the pros and cons of digital, because I was doing a film, Lawless, and there was so much night shooting in the woods.
Right.
And you both independently said, do you want to be a dinosaur or a pioneer? And I was like, yeah, pioneer. So, but at that point, I've kind of struggled with digitals ever since that, and I know there's pros and cons, and I'm interested to hear your feelings on digital versus, because I know you were a big champion, and a lot of, there was a very impressive work, and digital offers can do a lot of things. I kind of think, in getting back to that sort of multi-camera thing and screens everywhere where everyone's looking, there's a kind of lack of focus I find these days because of it. It's a bit like everyone being on a device, but also, Marshall McLuhan said way back, he talked about film like as a shared experience. It's in a dark room, and it's an organic kind of medium that's flickering, like, storytelling akin to, storytelling from way back. But he said something really interesting. He said it's like a dream. It goes really deep on that level because has that kind of almost ancient organic sort of basis to it, whereas electronics and digital and electricity, he was talking about TV, but this, I think it applies very much to where we are today. He was saying it's so instantaneous, it's like so fast and instantaneous that it's more akin to fantasy and daydream, which is a sort of, so it's not as deep. And I do think, in seeing this film, there's something textural about film and something more focused about film, and a richness, and even color separation. Like there's this streaming mush of color now that's just all mud. I'm curious how you now feel looking back on and where we're going with both digital and, speaking in technology, AI, and I'll leave it.
I think
Those two big questions.
I think you put your finger on it earlier, I mean, you watch so many things that is like cut on dialogue on like close-ups. Now you talk about the sort of poetry or whatever the film. Sure, if you look at Mirror or Solaris or something, anything that Tarkovsky's done is kind of film poetry, but I don't think that's just because it's shot on film. And the number of people, editors too, that refused to believe that we shot Skyfall digitally was kind of strange. Because to me it was obvious. On the other hand, I think we've seen a number of films this year shot with a digital camera, and I don't know which camera, so I'm not going to say, that looked awful. They look digital.
So it really depends
So
how
I
you
don't
shoot
know.
it.
And I noticed actually even with film stocks that they've gotten finer grain to the point where the sharpness and is almost like digital, ironically. It's it doesn't have the same textural richness.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I take still photographs now on a digital Leica, and that's one thing I do is add a little noise to the frame, to the image at the end. And a couple of times we thought of doing that on different films, but then the last time we drawn back and said, well, we don't actually need to do that.
Yeah.
I think you have to deal with the reality that there isn't the infrastructure for film anymore, that you don't have the loud people, all the great technicians have gone over to digital. So the last time we shot film, there was an issue, and it was really difficult to figure out, and it took me 3 weeks, and it was a stock issue, which Kodak didn't want to hear about, but they didn't have their people in there, so I had to find out what it was and then tell them the this is what the problem is. So that's the other problem. I mean, I think film is wonderful, but you don't, if there's a problem, who are you gonna turn to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not either way about it. I mean, I did actually hold out a long time before I started shooting digitally. And then really it did it for very specific reasons. I mean, especially the second film was Skyfall, that was the second film I shot digitally. And that was very much because of the content of the, just practically, but like talking to you about Lawless, is that shooting some of those, you know, some of those night scenes and not wanting to saturate it with light, you know, I mean, it just seemed.
I think there's also, it's like with David Fincher's Zodiac, which was very cinematic, I thought, even though it was shot on digital, and it's, with Skyfall too, there's a sort of technological extra plasticity and electronic kind of precision that suits certain storytelling, you know, but I did, last question, and I want to open it to the audience. Just all technology, you know, it's unstoppable. We will adapt. There's pros and cons, everything, I think. So I'm curious, with the big elephant in the room that's coming, it's already come, is any thoughts or observations on AI and our business?
It's how you use it. I mean, you say about with digital is everybody's got a monitor and the director's 6 miles away with a screen and he's playing it back at 20 times to figure out the shot's any good, and you could redone the tape 20 times by the time he or she says we need to change this. I mean, the whole thing turns into a morass, doesn't it? That just, you lose so much time and so much energy by this whole. But it's only because they choose to do that. You could shoot with a digital camera and not have any of that crap, just like if you were shooting with a film camera. What's the difference? So it's just how you use the technology. Remember when Steadicam first came out? Everybody's. I don't know what they're doing it for. It's cool. I mean, now every series you see, that every third shot is a drone shot. Excuse me, why are we always doing this? That's really hurting because you're doing a God shot. But if you do it every third shot, it kind of loses its kind of point.
I think sometimes they are thinking that AI is going to be great because you need maybe 3 people to make a movie. But the whole point about making movies is it's such a collaborative process, and there is one person, the director, that it goes all through, but there are all these ideas coming to the hub, and it's not coming just from one person, because the director might not have thought of that idea and thinks, oh yeah, that fits in what I'm doing. So it enlarges the movie, but if it's just coming from one person, is it going to be as interesting?
Well, I think the AI thing, like you're saying, the AI thing is I mean, in conjunction with AI is going to be, you know, whether people use the volume or just create the whole background and they're just shooting the actors in a virtual space or whatever, I don't know. But you're losing something about the relationship to the real world. Everything's like this spiral into kind of nothingness. It's like shooting it. I'm going to say something crude, but you know, it's becoming even less in touch with reality. And film is already out of touch with reality. So the more they use AI, the more they use CG and all the rest of it, it just becomes a sort of superficial. And Marshall McLuhan also said, the medium is the message. So that's what it becomes. It's not about what the director is trying to say, what the script is trying to say, what the mood is that you're trying to create. It just becomes self.
Let's open it up.
I was on a radio show one time with a film critic, and he asked me, oh, why was that scene done such and such? And then he corrected himself. Oh, he said, no, I've sorry, you're the cinematographer. I thought I was talking to the director. And I thought, well, that's what people think the cinematographer does. They just create pictures. But yeah, you go into the story as deeply as, hopefully, as the director. Because you need also to know the director's take on that story. So, yeah, what can you say?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
My question was, you just said the medium is the message, and with as a filmmaker in this current climate, with my question is, do you feel it has to be viewed in a theater for it to be cinema, or are you? What would you say if you were a filmmaker coming up right now with the internet, and is that a viable source, or does it, should we all want to keep theater alive, but I think for storytellers sometimes you got to use what's available, so I was curious your thoughts on that.
I agree with you. I mean, what's the priority? Surely it's to tell a story, to have something to say. I mean, yes, it's wonderful watching things in a movie house in a traditional way, but there's also reality of the things. What do you say?
Well, there is also that experience of scale that I love about cinema. And I know, I mean, even with nice cinema, and also that shared experience, I think, is pretty special. We're also this idea of communities. It's like, if anything, all of that's breaking down. But I sound like a Luddite, but I try to find the positives in, believe it or not. You never recognise that in my movies. But another question, someone further back, right back there, yeah.
Hi, so I have a question about IMAX filming. Since you already mentioned about the film and the struggles of having labs and infrastructure to support the film, how do you feel about the IMAX coming back, and a lot of the great cinematographers are retiring, and new filmmakers are technically clueless about films? How do you feel about that?
Not sure which category I'm in right now. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I will say, quite honestly, I don't like IMAX because it's a compromise of format. But
Actually, I wanted a very quick one it is in terms of format. Given there's so many variations now, and there's the sort of Univision, is it the 2.0 that's based on iPhones and the Netflix ratio, but there's so many ratios and format. I'm curious your thoughts of how you discover that and find that with the director.
well, I've always shot for whatever whether it's 185 or 239, whatever theatrical. And then, like on Skyfall on that, we had to, we were shooting full set open gate, so we had the latitude top and bottom to go to IMAX without cropping the middle of the frame, which some people have to do if you're shooting anamorphic film, for instance. But I don't like it because it's a compromise. There is only one frame as far as I'm concerned, but then I'm one of those old guys and I like still photography and I like a frame to be a frame.
And shooting one camera.
And one camera and prime lenses. I'm taking it home here.
And sorry, just in the middle there.
Hi, James and Roger, you have such a great relationship creatively. Has there ever been like a really big disagreement between the two of you? And Roger, do you defer to James, or does James
We don't really disagree much.
No, maybe on a lamp sometimes. But
No, but I mean, we kind of go going towards the same thing, so we're talking about it all the time. And, I can't really remember a time where
No, we've always been very in sync.
we might disagree on how we tell someone something, or when we tell production something.
Yeah,
But
I'm
that's
I'm a little,
my disagreement.
I can be a little brutal with people. I suppose, yeah. James is very diplomatic, so we make a good.
I'm imagining what it's like if you were all pushing for multi cameras and lots of coverage.
Oh, yeah, that's me. No, I'm always the one that's going to the line producer who's going, well, who are your other cameramen? Because we're gonna need 9 cameras on this. No, we don't,
Yeah.
we don't. And then every time we need something extra, I go, remember, you don't have those other 9 operators, so give us this.
And James is talking about, well, particularly on Blade Runner, we didn't need. We were going to shoot that one camera with a second camera who was also going to be like a second unit, splinter unit. And yeah, the line producer at one point is saying, well, we've got your first A camera crew.
But in all fairness, this guy had just done big pictures.
No, he had all done all those big action
So
movies.
he
so
didn't get the
he was
concept of a
thinking
single
there'll be at
camera.
least 5 cameras on the whole shoot, you know, and then when he said this, I was sort of like, I was just in
But it was great
blank.
because I could always use that to get another piece of equipment. Well, you didn't have to pay for them.
But, you know, that's a film. There's quite a lot of action in Blade Runner and stuff. No, it was all single camera. I mean, a couple of times we had a second camera, but not much. No. I don't want any zoom lenses either.
Yeah, I like that reminder of both Godfather films were shot on 2 to 3 lenses only and 250,000 feet.
Yeah.
Whereas your average independent film is
Yeah.
endless.
But we're talking to
There was
Joe.
something about limitations.
We were talking to Joel yesterday, and he was talking about Fargo, and we were talking about editing and the amount of coverage, and he was saying he remembered on Fargo when he looked at the trim bin, you know, and instead of like the big 60 sort of bits hanging, there were like 8. And he said his heart sank. He thought, have I got a film here? So we only shot 100,000 feet of film. You know, that's not a lot, is it? Let's face it. It's funny, Joel, remembering that.
The amazing both James and Roger